Introduce yourself.
Yes, I can do that. My name is Lars Magnar Enoksen, and I am one of the last grandmasters of the Lasertech style of Glima.
And what is Glima?
Glima is unarmed combat, Nordic unarmed combat. It can be like practice as a game, like wrestling, and it can also be like real self-defense, battlefield wrestling. And yeah, we have fixed grips, trouser grip. Nowadays it's belt gripping, and we have the backhold grip, ryggspännattack, livtag, and then we have the Lasertech, the free grappling, when you can hit and kick as well. Yes.
And what is your style, if there are different styles?
Yes, it is these three different styles, major styles. It is those, we separate those with fixed grips, that is, they are named after the grip you take, like in the belt or in the trousers, or behind the back spanning, back hold. They are of course called livtag, ryggspännattack, depending which Nordic language you are referring to. And then we have the free gripping, that was called Lasertech, lace, free, tök, hold, grip, and also that was also commonly called in the other Scandinavian language, brottning, bryting, bryning, and so on.
And if we talk about Nordic, which countries from north are involved in Glima?
This is all countries, if you do historical research, and you can see that it was practiced in all the Scandinavian countries. That means Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands.
And if you do, say you do historical research,
Yeah.
On what sources do you refer?
Yes, so because if you claim something is, had survived in an unbroken tradition, you have to prove it. So first of all, I have learned it from living persons, but of course I learned it by them in the 20th centuries, in the 1900s. You have to go further back, if you're going to claim it that it is old. So what you see, you can see, so you can pray, I can trace my lineage from masters. I learned it from on Iceland by the great Thorsten Einarsson, who was the Minister of Sport between 1941 to 81, so he was not an unknown person. And then there were other masters, great Glima masters, Arman Jott Laurusson, Peter Ingvarsson, Sigurd Jonsson, and Hjalmur Sigurdsson, just to name a few. And of course we can go further back. We can go to Torsten Kristiansson, the last surviving master of the Lasertech style of Glima, because that was actually become forbidden. It became illegal 1916 because it was ruled too dangerous, because this was a style also practiced in the Scandinavian military. It was not as a game, it was self-defense. So and then you have to go further back, and of course the oldest, we have great dissertations about this style already published in the, between 1888 and 1892. It was a dissertation on Iceland with all the major techniques of this Lasertech, this self-defense style of Glima. And then of course you go further back, you can go to Per Henrik Ling, the instigator of the Swedish healthcare system, also the oldest known university where you study specialist on sport, that was founded 1813. Yes, I have the numbers in my head. Yes, so and his manual was presented so he died in the late 1830s. So 42, he's a major student that also was a fencing master at the Uppsala University, also the first person in Scandinavia that allowed women to train martial arts. Yes, that was 1823 in Uppsala University. We started, women were allowed to enlist in learning self-defense at the university. But yes, so he wrote down the manual of how they train the Glima and the self-defense in the Swedish and the Norwegian army in the beginning of the 1800s, because it was also Per Henrik Ding that also taught the bayonet fighting style of used in Scandinavia. So there is also a book preserved with 416 bayonet techniques that was used in the Swedish army, and of course a movement that but then of course it was the style when you fought without weapons, and that was of course the Glima style. So now we are in the beginning of the 1800s, and then if we go to the 1700s, it has also been preserved. There is a dictionary, Icelandic, Latin, Danish dictionary that has never been published because it was too big. It was written by Jon Olafsson from Grunavik, that was the assistant of the great manuscript collector Arne Magnusson. So yes, this is preserved at the Arne Magnar Institute in Copenhagen, and there, if you look at the dictionary word of Glima, there you will find all the techniques used, the name of them, and also some comments of it. So now, and that was written, he started to write that in 1736, and he wrote it, he died, if I remember correctly, 1779. So he wrote it up to the last decade he was alive, you know, all added entries, because it was a dictionary. And then we're on in the 1700s, and then yes, we have sources from the 16 and the 1500s, because we have to talk about how should you train to be a warrior. How can you get your condition, of course, and also your agility and fighting skill, and that was also always Glima or Brottning being specified. And we're not talking about the modern, Olympic wrestling, because the folk styles were the sportification process that happened in Europe and the Western countries between 1860 and 1890s. There, of course, they became the modern sports, and that is not how it looks, in the 17 and the 1600s. Then it was more hardcore fighting that was preserved. And yes, we also find that in the dictionaries. As I told you, this was Jon Olafsson for Grunavik. That is, of course, a dictionary never published, still exists at the Arne Magnar Institute. But there are other dictionaries, so it doesn't matter if it's a dictionary that goes from Sweden, and it has either to go from a Nordic country to a foreign country, from a Scandinavian to German to English to Latin, or from Latin, English, German, French to a Scandinavian language. And then you look up when it says a word related to martial arts or fighting, and then you will see the description, how they describe words, and so those are great sources. So we have lots of dictionary describing Glima from 1800, 1700, 1600, and the first was published 1510. So that is the oldest published dictionary we have that mention it. And then of course we have travelogues, people traveling that has seen it and write something about it. So it's there. It's in travelogues from the 15, 16, 17, and 1800s. And then we have, and now we go back to medieval times. We go now further back to the 14, 13, and the 1200s. Then the best sources is the law books, the Scandinavian province laws, because we have entries, when you get injured in free free time activities, you know, because so we had you know, so there we have even the rules for Glima. It says so we have so if we go back to a specific law book, I recommend you to look at the law book called Jun's book. It is of course called Jun's book because it was a Icelander asking from the Norwegian king to get the Norwegian laws for Iceland, and they have had it the decade before. That was the Jan Sida law, but that was not accepted. So now it was 1281. They brought in to present it at the Alting, you know, the Hjalmar Assembly on Iceland, and there it says, you know, everybody that practice Glima or tug of war with drawing skin, you know, that was about two most brutal games you can practice in Scandinavia. So it says you go in there by your own free will. So if you're injured, you have to take that on your own risk. So that shows how the injury rate was. However, it also says that unless somebody willfully tries to hurt you, then there is something else, because then it's not regarded as a game anymore. Then it should be regarded as a lethal attack has been afflicted to you, and you are allowed to respond. And of course, you have to allow to fight back, and also that person will be outlawed. So everybody afterward is allowed to kill that person. You know, so it was very harsh rules about it, and that also goes back when children learn Glima. So when a child learns Glima, if there's somebody, you know, trying to bully up any others, you know, all the others are allowed to gather and just beat the hell of that kid and kick them out and say, okay, you're not allowed to play with us anymore. So in the rules of Glima, the kids learns the rules for the grown-up society. Because grown-up society, yes, you're thrown out of society and everybody's allowed to kill you. You know, that is. So now we are in the 1200s, and from the 1200s we are, of course, we don't have the younger Edda manuscript from the 1200, but we have it from the early 1300, because that was written by Snorri Sturlason, and he died, of course, 1241. And believed to have written the younger Edda, or the prose Edda, as it said, also between 1220 and 30. But we have three manuscripts existing from the first part of the 1300s. And yes, there we have the myth when Thor is fighting Ellie, and he loses. So he's a man, strong man, loses to a woman, but everybody loses to her, but because he's old age. And yes, there is Glima mentioned. So in the oldest manuscript, yes, it is Glima. That is called Uppsala Edda, because it's now preserved at Uppsala University. Check it up, number D11, if you want the catalog number. Yes, and in the other, it's called Fangbragd. So that means Fang is this area, Bragd is a deed. All the techniques has a bragd in it, Helbragd, and Mjadmarbragd, Klovbragd, and so in Old Norse. So yes, and this, of course, and it's mentioned in loads in the Icelandic sagas. It is mentioned in at least it is in Gretti's saga. We have the Glima law. You know, if you fight, you know, how should you act? You know, if you happen to be on the run for the law and you are fighting, and there is also, you have it that your fighting can be fight one against two. And the Grettis saga, yes, that is preserved from the 13th and 1400, but Grettir was a person who actually had lived, and he lived in the 900s. But of course, I'm telling now the problematics with the saga, because they are talking about the Viking age, but the manuscripts we have, they are preserved from the 12th, 13th and 1400s. But still, we are back all the time, and yes, and it's mentioned in Egil Saga, Egil Skallagrimsson Saga, because he's infamous because he's so ogleaming. That means that he was very bad to do Glima because he beat up people in it. But he became a great warrior. And then we have reference, from the Skaldic poetry. We have, for instance, Bragi the Old, one of the oldest known poets that was it was active at the same time as Harald Fairhair, in the late 800s to the early 900s, and he makes a reference to the Glima fight mentioned by Snorri Sturluson in the Edda, because it's the myths. So we can see that the myths that Snorri Sturluson wrote, put down on text, already existed in the late 9th century. And yes, we have Torbjörn Hornklovi. This will be the last source. Sorry, I tell too much. But this is the thing, People ask, where are the sources? So I just wanted to be like a machine gun, tell you there are at least this, and there are loads of them more. But yes, we also have in the famous Rafskvädi by Torbjörn Hornklovi. That is the first source we have for berserkers, for the Jul, and yes, it's the oldest source for a Glima tripping technique. So peace out from, yes, I am a super nerd.